How to Train Your Dragon is often considered one of DreamWorks' best films, period. The visuals, the setting, the characters, and of course, the unforgettable music that you still hear in videos to this day. Mostly meme videos, but you know what I mean. Suffice to say, when it hit theaters way back in 2010, 15 years ago, that's crazy, it was basically an instant classic. Now, 15 years later, the franchise is back, but with a little twist. Now it's live action. But how does this new version stack up against the original? Today we're taking a look at both the 2010 classic and its live action remake and see what stayed the same, what's different, and whether the live action version can hold a candle to the original. This is Then vs. Now, How to Train Your Dragon. Let's get started. So first, we'll talk about the story. This section will be pretty quick, because both versions follow the same basic plot. Hiccup, a scrawny, awkward teenager in a village of buff, loud, dragon-slaying Vikings, wants to prove himself by killing a dragon himself. One night during a dragon raid, he manages to injure the rarest dragon alive, a Night Fury. Intent on finishing the job, he looks for it in the woods, but he can't finish the job and instead befriends the dragon and names him Toothless. This friendship changes the course of history and the relationship between humans and dragons forever. The animated film balances high-flying adventure with emotional depth, tackling themes like compassion, toxic tradition, and parental expectations. It never talks down to its audience, and instead it dares to let kids and adults sit with grief, growth, and tough choices to make. And personally, I love that it trusts its viewers with this information instead of babying them around. The live-action remake follows a lot of the same beats, but the tone feels a little more mature, probably because of how the pacing affects the storytelling a little. The animated film cuts between scenes so fast, but the live-action remake holds on to them a little longer, letting the audience take everything in. But overall, the story is basically the same. Next up, let's talk about the characters. With the jump to live action, characters' appearances will differ between versions, as to be expected. We'll talk about that later, but for now, let's focus on the interpretations of these characters. Hiccup. In animation, Hiccup is voiced by Jay Baruchel. Baruchel's interpretation of Hiccup is iconic, to say the least. His nasally delivery and dry wit made the character we know and love. Hiccup is sarcastic, he's book smart, and he is also wildly out of place in a village full of brutes. What makes him stand out is his heart and perseverance. His bond with Toothless becomes a metaphor for empathy and rewriting the rules. In live action, Mason Thames changes it up a bit and brings a slightly different flavor to Hiccup. He's still awkward and thoughtful, but he plays Hiccup with a more grounded sense of sadness and resolve. He feels a bit older and more emotionally burdened, but I'm wondering if that's because the actor himself is not 15 and doesn't look 15. But it's a solid reinterpretation, just a bit more dramatic than quirky. This is emphasized even more when he delivers the same lines as Jay Baruchel, but it doesn't quite have that same sarcastic punch. Doesn't mean it's bad, it's just different. Toothless, on the other hand, is basically the same. Animated Toothless was a revelation, to say the least. He's expressive, silly, loyal, and somehow manages to be cute and cool at the same time. Since Toothless doesn't have dialogue, it's all about his body language. He's both dog-like and cat-like, and those big green eyes say so much. And he's not just Hiccup's sidekick, he's his best friend. Kind of just like how dogs are man's best friend. And I honestly have no notes for his live-action interpretation because it's just Toothless and it's A+. Astrid, on the other hand, is a little different. In the animated film, Astrid is strong, focused, and confident. She starts off as Hiccup's rival, but slowly becomes his closest ally and eventually falls for him. Her respect for Hiccup grows as he proves himself through empathy, not violence, especially when she sees that he won't back down from protecting Toothless. In the live-action version, Nico Parker's performance makes Astrid feel a little bit more aggressive out the gate. She's a little mean to Hiccup at first, even going so far as to saying that he has a bit of privilege because he's the son of the chief of Burke. The performance still works, and she further highlights that growth that Astrid has when she warms up to Hiccup, which I love a lot. Stoic. Voiced and now played by Gerard Butler in both versions, and what can I say? He's perfect, and practically the same in both, albeit with some subtle differences. In the animated version, Stoic's interactions with Hiccup is often played with a little humor, often leaning into some father-son misunderstandings for comedic effect. In live action, though, Butler brings a commanding presence. Sure, he's not as big as he is in the animated version, but that doesn't really affect this aspect of him. His interactions with Hiccup feel heavier and more grounded, with a little bit more tension between father and son. And oh boy, there's that one scene where he doesn't really understand why Hiccup is, doing so well in camp, and it gets really, really awkward. I don't know if it was just me, but that scene, I watched both back to back, one after the other. Honestly, I watched the live action and then I really wanted to watch the animated film again, and it's just not as awkward in animation than it is in live action. I don't know what it is about it, but it's a scene where they sit down to talk about things, and I don't know, something about the live action makes it feel way more awkward, and I guess that, it works. Lastly, let's talk about Snotlout, Fishlegs, Roughnut, and Toughnut, the other guys. In animation, these guys were straight up comedic relief whenever they were on screen. Snotlout is voiced by Jonah Hill and is cocky and constantly trying to impress Astrid. Fishlegs is nerdy and dragon obsessed. Roughnut and Toughnut are the chaotic twins who bicker constantly. In the live action version, most of their personalities stay intact, but with new spins added to them. Snotlout doesn't only try to impress Astrid, but now has some daddy issues that give him some more depth beyond just being a loudmouth. I mean, him being small compared to the other Vikings must have, made him self-conscious. And I don't know if that's my interpretation of the character, but he seems a little self-conscious. He's trying to overcompensate, and he's trying to impress Daddy. The twins are basically still chaotic, but to me, I feel like Roughnut seems more sarcastic than dumb, but also Toughnut isn't obsessed with her looks as much as she is in her animated version. I don't know if that's just me over-analyzing, so comment down below if you think that is basically what y'all thought when you watched the film. Fishlegs, however, basically the same. Don't think he received any real differences, but they're all fairly recognizable with some subtle nuances added to their personalities. With regards to their appearances not completely matching their original counterparts, we'll turn to director Dean DuBois, who put it best. He said, quote, "We auditioned many actors for the roles, including actors who looked like their animated counterparts, but we chose the actors who best embodied the spirit and personality of the characters. Since the tribe in this version is made up of descendants of the finest dragon fighters from everywhere the Vikings have ever traveled, which historically was far and wide, Vikings mixed with many cultures, still, we're crafting a fantasy, not historical fact." And I agree. Sure, they don't look like the animated versions, but they feel like, and I'm fine with that. Next up, let's talk about settings and visuals. In the animated trilogy, Berk is a stylized Viking village perched on a cliffside. It's colorful, exaggerated, and beautiful. It's like something that could have existed in a storybook, which is an apt description considering How to Train Your Dragon was a storybook. But suffice to say, it feels like a fantasy world, cartoonish enough to be magical. The live-action Berk, on the other hand, was made to look real. The location it was shot in is real. It's called Tindalmer in the Faroe Islands, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. As director DuBois mentions in interviews, the location itself was embellished and made bigger in production, so it's not one-to-one with the island it was shot in. Anyway, back to the village itself. The wooden structures, muddy terrain, harsh weather, and small touches, like seeing characters' breath in the frosty air, give Berk a real-world authenticity. The set design is phenomenal. It doesn't feel like something that exists purely in fantasy. It feels like something that honestly could have existed. But we can't talk about visuals and the setting without talking about the iconic flight scenes. The original animated film gave us one of the most beautifully animated flying sequences ever. The test drive scene? Breathtaking. The way the camera moves as it follows Hiccup and Toothless was exhilarating, capturing that thrill of flying like nothing else. But the live-action version comes very close to matching that wonder. The flying scenes are epic, cinematic, and weighty. You feel the turbulence. You can see the wind ripple across the wings of the dragons. DuBois clearly knew the importance of these scenes and wanted these moments to feel huge, and they do. I would say it feels more physical and more dangerous, with the falling sequence even more chaotic in live action. DuBois even mentions that one of the inspirations for the look of the sequence were GoPro videos of people in wingsuits flying down near vertical cliffsides in Switzerland. And I feel like they captured that perfectly. It feels like you're watching a wingsuit video or someone flying in a glider or something. And the music paired up with the falling sequence was great. A nice addition to a track that's already iconic. And lastly, we'll circle back to the tone. The original animated film was an emotional roller coaster. It had humor and heart mixed in with heavier emotional themes. Hiccup's relationship with his father, his identity as a Viking, even up to that penultimate scene where it seemed all was lost. The film didn't baby the audience, instead showing them the consequences that came with the actions of the people of Berk. The live-action version keeps most of that at its very core, and while the humor is a bit toned down compared to its animated counterpart, it's still there, just less in your face. Some fans have even said that the whimsy is dialed down but the emotional weight is turned up, which I agree with. The live action version feels like it's aimed at a slightly older audience, which is appropriate given that the audience of the animated film has grown up with it. However, it doesn't lose its core message, which is perfect for whatever new audience the film is aiming to bring in. And now that we're done with most of the sections, we'll have some closing remarks. While many people criticize the idea of making a shot-for-shot remake of the animated film, but live action, in the end, I had a pretty good time. While the film was very similar in shot selection to the animated original, seeing the characters reinterpreted with a new slew of actors was fun to see. Not only that, but seeing Burke in live action felt like rewatching the original for the very first time. The way the dragons were adapted in the live action was really cool as well, and for those wanting more Burke, the film is 30 minutes longer than the animated original, which is to be expected in the transition from animated to live action. One thing I will note is that for purists of the original, upon first viewing, I realized that the live action version does do away with two scenes, one being the scene when Hiccup sneaks Toothless into Burke, and the other being after the test drive sequence, when Hiccup discovers that dragons aren't fireproof on the inside. Director Dean DuBois mentioned that they did it because they felt like it messed with the film's pacing and the information felt redundant, but in my personal opinion, at least for the latter scene, the scene felt like a perfect way to decompress after the adrenaline-filled test drive sequence, and is a good way of teaching Hiccup the information he needs for that final battle, which I can't quite remember where he learned that information in the live-action version. But one of the scenes that they did add that I feel really emphasizes how strong the relationship between Hiccup and Toothless is the scene where Hiccup is honestly in danger of dying from the monstrous nightmare in that cage fight. You can see that Toothless is desperately trying to get out of his little pit that he's stuck in, because without Hiccup, he can't really fly, so you see him trying to climb all of the walls, trying to find a way for him to get to Hiccup, and honestly, I was just like, oh my god, this feels so strong. I love this. As I was watching, I was like, oh my god, this feels so sad. He's like desperate. It's like when your dog is trying to get out of its crate or something, and he knows something is wrong, and so they want to go to their owner to calm them down or something. I don't know, that got me. I have two dogs, and I was just like, oh my god, this is... Toothless is like a dog. But yeah, in the end, I personally think the live action was good, and I think the animated version and live action version are different enough that both can be enjoyed separately. I also think that it was made well enough that it doesn't feel like some soulless cash grab that other, animated live action remakes are. But let us know your thoughts. Are you a fan of this remake? Do you like that it stayed close to the original instead of changing it up like a Disney live action remake? I love to read everyone's opinions, so anyway, that's Then vs. Now How to Train Your Dragon. Thanks for watching, and remember, Frederator loves you.